So I've had this freaking gun apart about 3 times now. I figure I'll make a video. Maybe I'll save you some headache. Taking the gun apart is no big deal. If you're this far in, you're going to know the only real trick was getting the roll pin out of that part there. Just basically take a socket, put it upside down. You're going to put this thing over the socket and just beat the roll pin out with a punch, okay? Then this comes out, this plunger comes out, and then really you're just replacing this, the end of this cap. That comes off real easy. New one goes right on. The trick is here. And this has got, it's probably got more, but it's got one here. This is where I believe the air goes through this piece and then up into the barrel. I'll show you when we get it all back together. And then this O-ring here. What you have to make sure you do when you put this back in is, what I did not know is that this has to be pointed up like this for when you actually get the barrel back on there. If you put it in any other alignment, it's just not going to work right, and you're going to be taking it back apart like I did. So use your best judgment. See the hole there and the hole there. Looks pretty close. And when you're doing this, go easy, because this O-ring has to go past where the roll pin goes in here. So just make sure, and I've got it oiled up with old school Pell gun oil. This is about 100 years old. Okay, push her in nice and easy. That's what she said. Okay, and then once you get past that part, okay, it'll go in a lot easier. Okay, and assuming that you have it lined up somewhat correctly at all, I'm just taking a long extension. And we're just going to push that gently. Gently. Start to see that brass piece coming there and there. We pretty well got it lined up. All right, so I just took my punch in there and just rolled it just ever so slightly. So I'm going to leave it just like that for now. Then this goes in. Again, I'm going to put a little bit of oil on it. All right, if that happens, don't panic. That's what you're looking for. Okay. Remember, try to take it easy. It's got to go past that rough spot where the roll pin goes. Okay, and eventually it will go. Okay. A little bit further. And eventually you'll get to a spot to where you can line this back up. Put the roll pin back in. And before you do that, remember that this piece has to go back in, and this is the orientation of it. Perfect. Okay. See if you're still lined up here. We are. Okay. Okay, we've got things happening. Okay, this little piece right here is the key. We want we don't want that. We want that spring to go under that. Okay, that's what we're after. Okay, this is the spring that's gonna hold our safety. Don't worry too much about that yet. Kind of get it in place like so. Try your best to make sure that doesn't pop out at you. Okay, now you're going to line up the pump part with the barrel. So obviously there, that's our screw hole. But back here is the real trick. So, and this is why it's important to have this piece lined up the way that I showed you, like that, because the bottom part of this is going to go in there, and it wants to roll. It's kind of a pain, don't worry. So there, it's down, and we just need to get this lined up. And so you see how that's sticking out. You can just kind of push that down with your finger. By the time you get that down where it needs to be, there is the hole. Do your best to make sure that's still pushed it down while that is lined up. Brass screw. Okay, and I didn't show it, but that's the orientation of this piece. And we're going to take this, make sure this little sucker here didn't fall out on you. And that guy. Okay, it's kind of a dance, but you've got to get this, you got to get this piece in just so. But you got to get this piece in just so, along with the other end, the other standoff part of this goes down into the, it's going to go down into one of these matching holes on this other plastic piece and back here as well. Okay, and make sure that's in the groove. Okay, now that has got a little slot in the end of the air compression sleeve thing that you got to get that up into. Okay, and this is just the spring for our safety. Okay, kind of leave it. Let's kind of leave it down. Okay. This piece goes in. So. Now one of the trickier parts here, not the real trick. One of the trickier parts, is this, because we have to lift the barrel up off of that case we just mated it to ever so slightly without everything falling apart on us. Okay. It's just the struggle of getting this lined up here, and one of the keys is making sure this is all the way forward. And you're going to have to fight with that and getting the safety knob lined up on the adjoining plastic here. All right, there you go. That's the hard part of it. So now that should have some spring to it. That should not come out. That should have some spring to it. Okay. All right. And we can go ahead and put our screws back in and then put this back on, and that's it. That should get you through the hard part. No, the lighting's not great here. Hopefully that gets you what you need. Well, I'm down to this, taking this cylinder apart. You can see here I have etched in, if I can show you, 2 arrows here. There, it's about as good as it gets, to show where these 2 halves are supposed to meet when I get it back together. There's an O-ring inside of it, apparently, that I need to change. So I'm also going to mark this with some Sharpie, just in case that rubs off. I've got that. And I guess I'm going to use the vise or some channel locks wrapped with a cloth to try to twist this apart. Okay, so I tried using a cloth wrapped around here. That was too slick. So this is a 7mm thick rubber glove from good old Harbor Freight. Okay, we're starting to move now. You see that line shifted finally. Looks like the rubber glove was the ticket here. That is the O-ring right there. Be careful. There's the spring. That's it, folks. So this O-ring here, according to the seller that I got my kit from, is the problem why I'm having air pressure leak out the barrel every time I pump up the gun. So without further ado, it's pretty flat. In fact, it is flat. The new O-ring isn't like that. It's, you know, O-ring style. You reckon that's Loctite, folks? Yeah, I would definitely say that that is some Loctite. So maybe I'll throw a little... I'm glad I scribed it and Sharpied it. Hopefully, between all of that, I will be able to get this somewhat lined up to where it needs to be. There's my scribe line, my arrow. They actually look like different sizes, but I think that one's just smushed out. Although to be honest with you, I don't really see anything wrong with it, but roll her down one thread at a time. I got some blue. We'll put a little blue on there. So I got to go one full twist around. Check that. Okay, there I can feel it turning. But you gotta, the way I'm doing it, it has to bite down through that rubber glove first. I mean, that may seem obvious if you're watching it, but okay, just a little bit further. Oh, right on. Look at that. Right on, perfect. All right, so there's that. On the needle part of this valve here, the very interior part of this needle, you can see here on mine, is deteriorating. The whole thing is metal, but that inner ring there, that green part, seems to be, I don't know, like a soft, it's like a soft plastic or some sort of phenolic or something. And you can see it's come apart on this one. And that's what's causing the issues sealing. Whenever I'm pumping air into the gun, it is coming out of the barrel. It's because this cannot seat against the inside of this. And so if that happens, I'm not sure, depending on whenever you're watching this, whether a replacement needle like this is available, or if you're going to have to buy a whole new valve. As I'm making this video right now, you're going to have to buy a whole new valve to replace it, which is kind of a shame, but at least you'll know why.